We'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you so much for joining today's Lean Bites. I'm Jason Buck, Business Development Director here at Lean Techniques. If this is your first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. Lean Bites are a short 16-minute talk where our experts will provide you with simple, practical tips and techniques that you can start applying within your team or organization today. So before we get started, if you have any questions in today's talk, drop them in the chat and we can address them at the end if time allows, or offer more insight in an email follow-up to everyone. And please do us a favor. At the end, there will be a survey that automatically pops up. If you could complete that, that would be great. Feedback's very important to us for future Lean Bites, how we're doing, different topics that you might want to hear. So without further ado, I will introduce my friend, staff engineer here at LT, Microsoft MVP and international speaker extraordinaire, Daniel Ward. Joining us from our San Antonio contingent, Daniel's been a vital part of helping our software teams thoughtfully and effectively adopt AI, and he will be providing some tips and tricks for GitHub Copilot. So Daniel, take it away.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. Like I said, I'm Daniel Ward. I'm a staff engineer consultant here at Lean Techniques. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and basically where this talk is going to be coming from is for the past 8 months or so, me and a few others from LT have been coaching on AI, specifically GitHub Copilot, going through different teams and just coaching them how to get ROI, how to get value out of Copilot, how to use it, when to use it, when to not use it, things like that. So let's get into it. Thank you for joining the last Lean Bites of 2025. Okay, so what's the problem we're trying to fix? Problem with AI. This is not a trick question. We're trying to stop it from all this stuff, right? Going off the rails when you ask it stuff, giving you just totally irrelevant answers. You ask it to fix your tests, so it just removes them, stuff like that. Basically, how do we keep it on track when we ask questions, just in general, any type of questions? That's what we want to be addressing. So there's this idea of AI as an amplifier that's come about as of recent. I did not intend for this title to have so many A's in it, but I guess we can call this like the quadruple A or something. And basically, AI has been out for a few years now. We're kind of getting a better idea of how to use it. So the most recent DORA report from this year, they reported that this is the actual word they use is amplifier, that AI doesn't just help you, it amplifies the team practices you already have. So if your team does not have good practices, it's actually going to make you perform worse, which is part of what they saw. But if you do have good practices, it's going to help you move even faster. So basically, whatever you do, it's just going to make you do it faster, which makes sense to all of us who have been using it probably. And the GitHub Octaverse report from this year also found something similar. They found that people using AI both created and fixed security vulnerabilities faster. So we're finding the same thing there too. So we're getting this idea of like, yeah, AI doesn't just replace seniors or like replace discipline or just make you better. It kind of rewards discipline and it almost penalizes you for not having it if that's the case. So this idea of like, well, it's good for juniors, but seniors don't need it because they already know what they're doing. It's kind of like the opposite of what's actually the case, where it's actually maybe better in the hands of seniors because they have this idea of what correct looks like, and they can double check if the AI is correct. So all these things that hopefully you're doing already, all these things that make your code easy for a human to understand, that's what the AI was trained on. So it's going to make it easy for the AI to understand too. So none of this is new, right? Clear variable and method names, writing tests. Hopefully you're writing tests. They have English descriptions that the AI can easily read, right? Not having classes that are 2,000 lines long, right? English readable readmes. All that good stuff is going to make the AI better. So that brings me to the golden rule for this. If you walk out of this, be like, man, that was a really cool presentation, but I just forgot everything. And just remember this one slide. You have to verify all AI output. It doesn't matter what you're making, if it's code or not. It doesn't matter if it made one file or 100. You need to verify every single line that it made. Because this is the reason I like to show this. This is a slide from IBM from 1979. It says a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. And this is exactly what you're doing when you accept AI code, right? The AI didn't make the decision to push that out to production, you did. And the AI doesn't have to be on call, you do when something goes wrong, right? So ultimately, you still own that code, even if the AI generates it. I won't spend too much time on this. The Rumsfeld model is this existing model to help sort of categorize information and help us make decisions. It comes from Donald Rumsfeld, who said, we have known knowns, we have known unknowns, and we have unknown unknowns. Basically, I'll just give an example of how you can use AI with each of these. So like unknown knowns, information we know about. This is stuff, like write tests for these cases. I could write the test myself, but maybe it'll be faster if I use AI, stuff like that. Right? And I'll say, I would probably only use stuff for this if you have static tools that don't fit the use case. So if you can get by with using refactor rename in your IDE, use that. Don't use AI for that because it's not as reliable. It can mess up and it's slower. Right. If you have templates for generating new files, use those instead of AI. They're going to be the same every time. They're not going to mess up. Known unknowns, information we know we're missing, right? So are there any libraries out there already so I don't have to invent the wheel myself for this problem I'm having? A good example of this is a team we were working with had only 100 unit tests, and they were taking 3 minutes to run. So we just asked Copilot, is there something wrong with my just config? And it found 2 Booleans that need to be changed. And it went from 3 minutes to 5 seconds. So they said overall, this probably is going to save us 30 minutes a day. So that's a huge win for something super easy to ask it, right? Unknown knowns is biases we might have or intuitive knowledge. So we can say why does this design feel wrong? Help me document stuff for this code base, just kind of rubber ducking with it maybe. And in unknown unknowns, the gaps we aren't aware of. This is kind of new. We weren't really able to do this before AI came about, right? Find security problems in my code or performance problems in my code that I didn't even know I had, right? Suggest test cases that I didn't know I was missing. And only use that first one if there's no static tools available. Kind of brings me to this slide. There's kind of 2 ways to automate with AI. And the more important it is that a process runs the exact same way every time, like financial transactions or something, the less reason you have to use AI there. So you can either automate with AI completely. This is good when you can verify the output every single time, like you're in the Copilot chat. Or you can use AI to help you write a program that automates the thing. And this is what we see teams really that they need this a lot. So they say, well, we have this process and it takes us an hour. Can we automate the whole thing with Copilot? And almost always the answer is no, because there's no guarantee that Copilot is going to work the same every time. But we can use Copilot to a lot more quickly write a deterministic program that will automate it for us, right? So there's still a place for AI there. It's just not doing the whole shebang. Okay, context. Context is king. That doesn't mean shove all the context you can into it. More context is not necessarily better. There's this thing called context rot, which is where you give the AI so much context that it can no longer find the relevant things. And more likely with Copilot, what will happen to you is you'll run out of tokens in your context window, which means that there's just only so much memory it has. And once you fill it up, it's going to shove the old context out with the new context you gave it. You don't want that to happen. What I do to avoid this is just for each question or use case I'm asking it, just start a new chat window. That pretty much solves it in my experience. Also, AI generally does worse in projects that are brand new or not established, because in those big projects that already have a bunch of stuff, it's going to look at your existing patterns and tests, like I mentioned, for context and for how to write its new code that is generated. All these things I mentioned before, like test names and readmes. Other easy one is give it examples. The fancy name for this is 0-shot, 1-shot, or multi-shot prompting. This just means 0 examples, 1 example, or multiple examples. So if you ask it to do a task, you might say, here's example code blocks of before and after you do your job. And it might be an example you've done yourself manually already, right? But now Copilot sort of has a rubric to look at. I don't find you always need this, but for bigger tasks, that kind of helps it keep it on those rails. The diff trick, this is a pretty cool one from one of the coaches on our team. Basically, I think the case was a big Next.js major version upgrade. and they did one component once by hand. They saved the git diff to a file, just a text file. And then VS Code also has a pound sign changes. It probably does the same thing, but I haven't done it that way. They just gave that git diff text file to Copilot and said, here's what we did. Do it to the rest of or do it to this other component. And they verified everyone from there. And it just automated their workflow a lot quicker that way. Okay, use MCP. This sounds obvious, but this is slow in enterprises because everything has to be verified that it's okay to use, right? But seriously, this is huge. Context 7 is an MCP server that gets the latest docs when you ask about stuff. So if you're using Next.js and you ask a question and a new Next.js version just came out, it'll go into the docs and actually get the most recent version for you to see. So my opinion, even more impactful than that is your internal proprietary stuff. If you have internal documentation or internal data or internal libraries and frameworks that you use, if you make MCP servers for those, that is like a massive difference in my opinion. It is just so easy for people to ask a question about it. Instead of looking through the docs for something that might not even be there, they can just ask in English, what are the business patterns we're supposed to do with this, right? Is there a UI library for this already? That's huge. This is just showing that in VS Code, context 7 actually has an official setting for Copilot to use, so it's a pretty big thing. Role prompting, this is basically asking AI to wear different hats. So if the problem is you're getting too generic responses, you can tell AI to act as a certain thing. So as an example, you tell it you're a senior engineer in TypeScript or React. And it sounds kind of silly that this would work, but it sort of does. I think the idea is this causes it to draw on the information it was trained on relevant to this. So the stuff that it thinks is related to senior TypeScript engineering, it will include that context. This usually goes in your Copilot instructions file. If you do not have this, make this now for all of your repos. This is awesome, super great help. Tailor Copilot to act in a certain way for each individual repo. Whatever's in this file basically will get applied to every single prompt you ask Copilot in that repo. And the nice thing now is inside VS Code, you can actually have it generate these instructions for you if they don't exist. If you go to the little gear in the chat window, there's a generate chat instructions option, and it'll make that file for you based on the code base. Pretty cool. Meta prompting, this is sort of when you have AI help you write the AI prompt that you're going to use. So if it's maybe a bigger task or unreliable output and you need more details in there, what I do a lot is I say, hey, I have this task I want to do. I know I want it to cover these things, but I feel like I'm missing some other stuff. Help me write a prompt that covers this and accomplishes this task. And then it gives me a prompt, and then I just plug that prompt right back into the AI. Right. Really cool, again, for major framework version upgrades, major library version upgrades. Tell it, hey, I want to upgrade from this to this. Go to the docs to the upgrade page and then document that so I can run that prompt repeatedly. This is like a brand spanking new thing in VS Code. I think since last week, there is a /save prompt built in now that saves a new prompt file from your chat history from the current chat window. So presumably you're working on a task with code examples and stuff in that chat window, and it saves that into a reusable / command with Copilot. So pretty cool. Clarification, this one is super simple, but it's so helpful that I find. Again, just problem AI is producing unreliable output, makes a bunch of assumptions. Just say, hey, before you do this task, ask me any clarifying questions you need, or ask me 5 clarifying questions, right, before you start this task. And almost always it will have something that you're like, oh yeah, I didn't include that detail, right? And if you've ever used research mode on ChatGPT, by the way, this is exactly what it does. You ask it a prompt, and then it says, okay, first, answer these 3 questions for me before I go off and do that task for you. So super simple, but super helpful. Task decomposition, this is a fancy name for just take a big thing and break it down into subtasks, right? So if your problem is you're giving AI this big task and it just goes off the rails, doesn't do a good job, just break it down into smaller tasks. So instead of saying, implement this new feature for my web app, it'd probably be good to break it up into the front end part and the database part and the service layer part and whatever else, and have the AI focus on each one of those things individually so it can keep its context window smaller, right? If you've seen the plan mode, this new plan mode in VS Code, this is exactly what it's for. Okay. This plan mode doesn't make any changes. It just you tell it what you want to do, and Copilot makes a plan for itself or you to follow to accomplish that thing. There's also this new # to dos tool, and it will create this checklist. You'll see this at the right above the prompt area for the chat window, and it'll highlight and check off each one as it works on it. But it'll work on these to dos one at a time. So it's like a built-in checklist into Copilot. It's pretty cool. So that's it. The resources you can go and look at. Copilot, GitHub has their own. They call it a cookbook, and it goes by use case. So you can go like, oh, I want to write tests with Copilot. How do I do that? And they give you some examples. So the Copilot Chat Cookbook has a bunch of cool stuff. VS Code Copilot cheat sheet is a little different. It's more like how to do stuff specifically with Copilot inside VS Code. And this awesome Copilot repo is awesome. It's from Microsoft, or GitHub, which is now Microsoft, I guess. And it's just a collection of a bunch of custom agents and custom prompts and instructions that people have made. And you can go and look at them as examples. So, we've got a C# expert agent. We've got Atlassian requirements, right? We've got a bunch of Azure stuff. And you can look at how other people are writing their agent files just to, sort of get a feel for what works. So I believe that is it. Yeah. Thank you everyone for attending again, the last Lean Bites of 2025. LT has AI and Copilot offerings to help you get started with any of this stuff, like some of the stuff I and some other LTers have been doing in this presentation. So please don't hesitate to hit us up if you're interested in any of that.
Thanks all.
Thanks.